Hi, I'm Robert Greaves, and this is The Point. For decades, China's been known as a developing economy. It makes things in intense manufacturing ways for the West. America and Europe buy from China. But of course, that dynamic is now changing as China becomes more innovative and goes up the chain into less intensive jobs that are actually more important to the world. And in different parts of China, this has caused some differences in the way the Chinese economy has developed in different pockets, from double-digit growth, sometimes even single-digit growth, depending on the city or the region. With me today to discuss this is Perry Wong of the Milken Institute. The Milken Institute is a nonprofit, nonpartisan think tank dedicated to collaborative data and policy initiative-driven solutions that create jobs, widen access to capital, and provide innovative solutions. They've operated from Santa Monica, California. They also have a big operation in Singapore. And Perry, great to have you with us today.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a few questions about your index because you have every year the China's best performing cities index. And I want to talk about that because you're going to roll out another piece of research this year.
Correct. Hopefully, if everything goes right, we're going to have a rollout in about 2 to 3 months.
Terrific. Where did this idea of best performing cities China index come from?
As like a movie goes, it started a long while ago. We actually tracked that kind of statistics back in the almost 2000, 1998, because we noticed that the city region growth actually used to be depending on resources and abundant labors. But now the mix has changed. It depends on technology, it depends on openness. And actually someone quoted in the US would say the gay index is a very important gauge to measure the openness and creativity of a society. So that's where we started.
Where do you get the information from?
Well, we actually get from the very reliable annual statistics. In the US, we get it from BLS. In China, we get the equivalent of that, the National Statistical Bureau, which they report income, employment, foreign direct investments, and concentration of technology in all cities in China.
And what is the purpose of the index? What do you do with it?
We try to use that to gauge the Chinese regional growth dynamic, because if you think about it, every region actually represents a piece of the nation, a piece of it, some bigger, some smaller. And if they all link together, actually that's what we call a really endogenous growth process, meaning they feed on each other, they have a more reliable supply and demand basis, in addition to the foreign demand and supply.
Endogenous, look up that word, endogenous.
And they actually can feed on that growth on its own, less depending on import especially exports.
Okay, so your 2018 report put Shenzhen at number 1 after being placed at number 4 for 2 years in a row. Why did you put Shenzhen at number 1?
Two focuses, I think, are some government policy driven, because the Chinese government in the last 5 years or so, if not slightly longer, placed the emphasis on innovation and innovative-based economy, and hence the government invested a lot of money. And second, and I think is most important, is that Shenzhen have been always an open city, not only open to foreigners, but most importantly, open to almost everyone being aggressive, want to make it in China, to reside in Shenzhen.
That was a big jump from number 4 to number 1.
Yeah, it's a big jump in ranking, but I think Shenzhen is a place I think would be the leaders among the growth cities in China. So from 4th to 1, literally I think says that they actually have bear some fruits after 20-some years or 30-some years of building. From the very primitive, making electronic watch, from the Hong Kong back shop days, to today you have an economy or company such as Dajiang, which create some of the very advanced products, consumer products. So you can see the change literally overnight if you want to look far back.
Right. So who's going to be number 1 this year? What's going to be the best
Well,
performing
it's hard to say.
city?
We are not done yet. I don't want to prejudice beyond data And but I believe Shenzhen is going to be on top. I have a strong hunch that Shenzhen will be among the top 5. Then another notable, I think, is the somewhat a rivalry, at least in the primary. I think in terms of trying to who grow the faster, not necessarily who are the biggest or strongest, but just on the faster side. I think Chengdu probably should be there too. Chengdu was ranked number 1 at one point 2 years ago, and was always placed in top 10.
I have to ask you, you said earlier before we went on camera there was a delay in the Chinese data being released. Why was that?
There are 2 reasons that at least I can recognize. One, because some of the policy directive that they want to clean up the way that how the data is reporting from the provincial city level to coincide with the central government's statistics. That's one. And another big reason for the delay is because they rebase some of the income and product data. So that takes some time.
Thank you very much, Perry.
You're welcome.
And that's the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter for future episodes, and so that we can continue the dialogue. Thank you.